Hey, this is Chad. On this show, we talk about everything audio. So if you like audio and audio stuff, stick around for the show. So let's get started.
It's time for GearTech Review with your host, Chad Rohrbach.
Hello and welcome to GearTech Reviews. I'm your host, Chad Rohrbach. I've got a good friend of mine here, Kevin, who is going to be co-hosting with me today, and we are going to talk about when we were actually in bands together. We were in like maybe 3 bands, I think it was 3.
Yeah, 3 bands, and thanks for having me here, Chad. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm glad you actually could join me today. So yeah, we were in I guess it was 3 bands, and we want to talk about some of the gear that we used and maybe why we used that type of gear.
One thing that's really unique is throughout this period that we've been in bands together, the landscape of music, gear, and just the way we do things has changed so much. I think when we first started, we might have even recorded some stuff on tape. You know,
I remember that.
Tape or like reel to reel. And like now, that is just unthinkable. You know, guitars haven't changed that much, but everything else has. I started out as always having pretty cheap guitars, but putting money into the electronics. That was always my thing. Is I don't care what the guitar, what brand it is, where it's made. I'm not one of those purists.
Right.
But if I can find a guitar that's got a good feel to it, then I'm going to make it sound however I want with the electronics, which is pretty easy to do.
Yeah, because you can always change out the pickups and the electronics within it to change the tone of it. So that is a good way to do it. For those who are trying to buy something and want something that sounds good, you can always buy a cheap guitar and just upgrade the electronics and the pickups and everything.
I'd also, depending on who you talk to, I always got a lot of praise for my sound. And part of what made my sound so unique was because I changed the electronics. It was so different. I had one type of pickup. I always use humbuckers, but I had DiMarzios in one position and then Seymour Duncan's in another one. 2 totally different styles and types of pickups, but they complement each other really well. So it was a sound that it'd be really hard to duplicate that without getting into something really expensive or custom.
Right. Well, I remember the first real type of guitar amp, which, I mean, I guess they're all real. The ones that people mostly see when they go to like the bigger shows where you see like the guitar players who have the stacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the very first one that I remember buying was a Crate Blue Voodoo, and it was just a 50-watt head.
I used to love those because they had the blue wrapping on them.
Right.
Didn't those have like the light? There was like a light bulb behind the...
They did. They had like little lights in there. I think they did that to make it look like it actually had more tubes than it had.
Yeah.
Because it really only had, I think...
Probably 2.
Yeah, I think it was 2 tubes in there. And which, you know, it was a good amp. I don't recommend that type of head amp if you plan on really cranking the volume on it. Mm-hmm. Because it does lose a lot of the distortion. It really breaks up and gets saturated. Doesn't sound too good.
One thing, if you are going to get a crate, that's the crate to get. And I don't think they make them anymore, but that was one of the few, like, you know, because crate was mainly a solid state.
Right. Well, they had the 150-watt head.
Yeah.
So that one probably could withstand a lot more. Probably wouldn't break up the distortion, you know, the louder you cranked it. But it was actually, I really loved playing that amp, actually. Mm-hmm. I think I ended up giving that to my brother.
That's probably worth a little bit of money now, just because they were so, it was like a flash in time. They were so rare there.
Right. But then, you know, in my opinion, the most awesome guitar stack is going to be the Mesa Boogie.
Of course. So I remember when I first started playing with you, Chad, I didn't even have an amp. I was playing acoustic at the time.
Right.
I had no guitar, I had to go out and buy all this stuff, and I didn't know what to do. So the first thing I did is went to Guitar Center, got a credit card,
maxed it out,
and got the Mesa, got the dual rectifier. But we always had slightly different sounds because you had like the oversized 412 cab,
right?
And I had like a old PV 412 with it's probably a 20-year-old cab, but it had Sheffield speakers in it.
Right.
Which are decent speakers for what they were. And I remember I got that used at Guitar Center for like, I don't know, less than $100. I mean, it was pretty cheap, but it cranked out some good sounds there for a while.
And and I've always said that when you're playing shows anyways, and that, actually I just talked with somebody else that was in a band called Downshift about this. When you're actually playing a band or playing a show, your audience or that are coming to see you, they don't care what you're playing.
You're right. As long as it sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. They're not looking at your gear. They're like, okay, these guys sound good. They put on a good performance. I like what they're playing. This is great.
I also never had the heart to get really good gear when we were gigging like that, because it got beat up so bad. Everything got beat up.
Absolutely.
Unless you get those, $1,000 road cases that cost more than your gear, you're going to beat it up.
Yep, exactly. And that's the other thing too that I've talked about before is when you're playing bigger shows, a lot of times you have these stage managers, and they're like, time is against them. So they've got specific time that they have to follow to get people on and off the stage.
Yeah, you got like 5-minute load in, load out.
Yeah, and if your gear's still on the stage when somebody else is on there, it's going to be chunked off to the side.
Yeah.
So the last thing you want really is having a bunch of expensive gear and then, taking that risk of it getting damaged because some stage manager is trying to get you off the stage to get somebody else on.
True. I always got some really great sounds out of the Mesa. Over the years, like I was saying, technology's changed since we've been playing. Most recently I got into the, let me go back for a second. So I was never a real guitar type purist caring about brands and whatnot, but I was a little bit of a tube amp snob there for a while because, all these companies were coming out with these modeling effects and they just didn't sound good.
Right.
So 10 years ago, I said, I'm just going to stick with this, really, 100-pound Mesa head and I'm just going to lug it around everywhere. Well, in the most recent project we did, I actually got into the digital modeling effects, and I'm having to kind of eat my own words now because I haven't plugged in my Mesa in almost 2 years.
Right.
So it's a complete shift for me going from this analog purist mindset to, man, look at what these little circuits can do. They can do 90% of what I want to do. You don't get that amp in the room feel.
Right.
But the sound is still good.
Right. And that's part of the way the technology has come so far because, yeah, you're right. The digital technology then, it was still very, very new, especially for modeling.
Yeah, they were doing some pretty cool things with effects as far as, really long digital delays and cool reverbs and reverse effects and swells.
Right.
And, you had all these cool digital effects, but the actual modeling was just like, it was awful. It was awful for a long time. or it was decent, but you had to turn so many knobs to make it work. It just, if you weren't a knob turner, you couldn't get a good sound out of it. So now things are getting to where you can not be a knob turner and still plug in one of these modeling effects and get some pretty decent livable sounds out of them. So there's a little bit of sacrifice with the feel, but you're getting 90% of that without having to lug around any gear.
Right. Exactly. That's the beauty of it. Right. So, and I believe that that whole thing goes back to the debate as to is analog better than digital or digital better than analog. And I know that has been a huge debate, especially in the recording side of, the music industry. But it has come so far and so close together with this simulation, the way digital sounds now. Or the emulation.
And when you think about it, for the past, 3 decades, we've been in this hybrid kind of thing.
Right.
Where either we're taking like a digital sound and we're recording it analog, or we're taking something analog and then we're laying it down digitally. Like,
right.
Either
it's still interfacing at some point.
That's right. For the past 30 years, we've been doing this, and now it's just, which way is the pendulum swinging right now,
Right. Yeah. So, this is very, very useful for those who are really trying to still figure this out, like newbies or musicians, So take this information and run with it because a lot of this is very hard learned.
That's right. This is hard fought knowledge here.
Stuff we only wish we knew when we were getting into this. Kevin, I appreciate you coming out, and that's about all the time we have for today's show, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Chad.
It's time now for GearTech Interviews.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I've got a special guest here today. His name is Caleb Sanders. He comes to us from a band called Downshift. They just played here in Noonan at the Alamo a couple weeks ago. I was able to go and check them out. They're a really good band. They sound to me a lot like Breaking Benjamin, maybe? Caleb, tell us how you're doing today.
Doing well. Thank you for having me out here.
So, you guys are a new band, right?
Yeah, we're pretty new out there.
How long have you guys been together?
We've been around for, I would say, around 8 months.
8 months. So you guys sound pretty good out there for 8 months of practicing together. Do you guys practice a lot, or?
We try to get in about at least 2 to 3 times a week. It just varies between our work schedules. So we just kind of go off one another and see if we have a chance throughout the week, and probably maybe a second time, just so we can get a good practice in and just try to get things together to go off. But like I said, most time it works out. Sometimes it won't, just depending on pretty much our live work schedules.
The band I previously played in, we had kind of a set schedule. I think we played we rehearsed maybe twice a week. And then if we had a show coming up that was a big show, then we would practice maybe 3 to maybe 4 times, usually at least the day before the show. That way we were pretty warmed up. Is that something you guys do as well?
Yeah, we definitely like to try to get in that one last rehearsal, especially the day before the show. And if not, maybe running through one more time before loading up our equipment to go to the show. So therefore we're fresh, like you were just saying, and warmed up, and you're just ready to get to it. You're
actually the guitar player, right? You play rhythm or lead?
Yes, that's correct. I have rhythm guitars.
Rhythm guitars, okay. That's what I actually played as well when I was in the band I was currently in. What guitar do you play?
I play Blackjacks by Schecter guitars.
Nice. That's a good guitar. I had the Schecter 006 Deluxe Diamond series, which at the time, it's probably one of their first made guitars when they were just starting to get popular. It was actually a great guitar, and I actually still have it, as a matter of fact.
Yes, most certainly did. It is a great guitar. I had 2 of them myself back in the past. Great guitars.
Definitely can't go wrong. So all you newbie bands, they're probably really popular now because I've noticed a lot of rock bands these days, even metal bands play those. So your guitar, if somebody came up to you after the show, for instance, really liked your guitar, how much could they expect to pay for that guitar brand new?
Going brand new, you can go anywhere from around $500 to $900, depending on which kind you're getting, and probably like the body style and the paint job as well on the guitar. So it can vary, but either way, which way you go, you're gonna get your money's worth, and definitely the sound that you're looking for out of the guitar, the Diplegia. Whatever types of music that you're interested in playing, it definitely has all the spectrum and those varieties.
Say a new band came up and doesn't have a lot of money to spend on equipment, and they maybe were looking for something used. How much could they find this guitar used?
Easily in mint condition, probably anywhere from $300 to $350.
That's actually a pretty good price. It's not bad for a used guitar, especially one of that caliber.
Yeah, I would say so too, because you see a lot of hard rock bands, metal bands out there. You'll see a lot of them using the brand Schecter out there because it really delivers that good hard punch and crunch that you're really looking for your heavy style playing. So yeah, I'd say it's a pretty awesome guitar, man. Pretty gnarly.
So Caleb, tell us about your show. How was it that night? Was it everything you expected out of playing your first show?
I tell you what, oh man, no, I think we all were a nervous wreck. Before, you feel one way of actually going to the show. Then as you're getting close to where you're doing the venue, you start getting those butterflies in your stomach because you're like thinking, oh no, this is not what we're going to be walking into. You don't know what to expect. And then when you get out of the car, you're so nervous, you're shaking, you don't know if you're going to go run and throw up or what's going to go on. So you just really try to hold it together until right when it all happens and you get out there and start playing.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens because sometimes it seems like man, you've got like this checklist of everything you're going through. You're like, hey, I've got this, I got this. I'm memorizing to do this and to do that. And then you get up there and it's like the very first song and your mind just goes blank. I mean, it's like you totally forget everything you were just, trying to not forget.
Everything that you were practicing, it almost, just like you said, it all almost just seems like it goes out the window. And like you said, the panic mode settles in and you're just like, oh crap, what do I do? But, it's just one of those things. And then eventually it does come back to you. But at first you're just solid as a rock, just standing there at first.
So that's about all the time we have for today's interview. I hope to see you guys soon back at the Alamo. Hopefully, you guys make your way back up there again. I'd love to come out and see you again. But thank you for coming out and taking the time out for this interview.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me out.
If you're enjoying what you're listening to here on GearTech Reviews, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. So just go to Facebook or Twitter and search GearTech Reviews.
Q&A with your host, Chad Rohrbaugh.
Welcome back to GearTech Reviews. Today I want to do a review on a piece of audio equipment. It's the PreSonus Live 32 Mark III digital mixing console. This mixing console is like no other digital mixer that I've actually used previously. This has so many features on it and is pretty unbelievable. It's not really a mixer that you would look for in a intro level where you're just trying to get off your feet and get started in doing mixing, but this thing is more for your seasoned or live sound mixer or studio engineer. After having a chance to actually use this mixer, I've found that it probably has more use in a live situation than it would in the studio. Now, that's not to say that you can't use it in the studio, because this actually has a DAW setting in it where you can actually hook it to a computer and utilize it as a DAW, like an interface. But for a live situation, if you find yourself in need of 16 individual mix setups, this board has what you need. You can set up 16 separate mixes, whether you're doing personal in-ear monitoring mixes, or if you're setting up stage mixes. I mean, you can do a combo. You can do in-ears, you can do stage mixes. It's got almost unlimited routing that I've seen in a mixer in a long time. You don't usually see this kind of routing on a mixer unless it's like a studio console of some sort. Studio consoles, you find that you require a lot more routing than you would for live. But this has kind of been put together in a way to utilize for both type situations. One of the benefits on this mixing console is you get PreSonus's best mic pre's. It's the X-Max mic pre's. It's their number one top line mic pre's that they offer. Now, each channel actually has its own effects processing, which is incredible. It means you don't have to buy outboard hardware like compressors, EQs, reverbs, delay processing units. Each individual track has all of those separate to each track. Your options are pretty limitless. Another great feature that this mixing console offers is a dedicated SD card slot that you can use to record directly onto. Meaning you can take a live band, set them up, get a good mix going on, and then you can record them straight onto the SD card without the need of an interface. This is pretty incredible, especially being how it's on a mixer. So guys, if you find yourself in a need for a 32 channel, 16 channel, or 24 channel digital mixer, look at the PreSonus Live. It's a great board. I've used it, and I guarantee that you will have fun with it and you will love it. So if you've enjoyed what you've listened to here today on GearTech Reviews, please go visit us on Facebook and Twitter. Just go to Facebook and Twitter and search GearTech Reviews and you'll find us. Well, that's all the time we have for this show. I hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, we'll see you again here next time.